Happy Sunday, beautiful people. Today we are reading about task number 2, common examples of operating system security, which is a task from the Introduction to Offensive Security and the path Introduction to Cybersecurity. As we mentioned in the previous task, security is concerned with attacks against the triad, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. In this room, we will focus on 3 weaknesses targeted by malicious users: authentication and weak passwords, weak file permissions, and malicious programs. Authentication and weak passwords. Authentication is the act of verifying your identity. You will always, in the context of cybersecurity and in the context of threats, authentication, you will find it linked with authorization. Authentication is the act of verifying your identity, as you see here, and authorization is the act of verifying what can you do, in simple words. So after you are identified on a website, for instance, I don't know, you want to buy from a clothing brand, you want to buy something. The first act of identification is when you type your name and the password. And authorization, this action is on the backside of the website. And what can you do? Your account is for a user. So you can buy things, you can review things, but you cannot, for instance, change prices, change the title of an item, so on. So in simple words, authentication verifies who you are, authorization verifies what can you do. Authentication can be achieved via 3 main ways: something you know, such as a password or a PIN code; something you are, such as a fingerprint; something you have, such as a phone number via which you can receive an SMS message. So here authentication is achieved via these 3 ways that we read about. Since passwords are the most common form of authentication, they are also the most attacked. Many users tend to use easy to guess passwords or the same password on many websites. Moreover, some users rely on personal details such as date of birth and name of their pets, thinking that this is easy to remember and unknown to attackers. However, attackers are aware of this tendency among users. Why? Because they are also users, or because there are databases or pure text-based files with the most common passwords. The National Cybersecurity Center, NCSC, has published a list of the 100,000 most common passwords. Let's look at the top 20. We have on TryHackMe the top 20. Here you can see the National Cybersecurity Center, and here you can see their post on this topic of most common used passwords. And here you can see the 100k pawn passwords. Here on TryHackMe we have the top 20. You can read them. You can see, of course, there are the most common ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the most common one. And then you add 7, 8, 9 for the second one. And then you can guess it. If I give you 10 tries, I'm sure you will guess the rest. It's pretty everything that is used by most people. We can see that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on up to 9, including 0, are on the list. Dictionary words such as passwords, I love you, monkey, and dragon are commonly used. Words not in dictionary include QWERTY, UIOP, and then numbers and words. These seemingly complex passwords are very predictable as they follow the keyboard layout. As you can see, it's just pressing in sequential order your keyboards. In brief, if the attacker can guess the password of any of your online accounts, such as email or social media accounts, they will be able to gain access to your private data. Therefore, it is vital that you choose complex passwords and use different passwords with different accounts. Passwords, yes, it's always recommended to use a complex password. What is a complex password? It's a password that you can just jump on, for instance, let me show you. Here we have the last password is the name of the website. And you can generate an uppercase letter, lowercase letter, numbers and symbols mixed up in 20 password length words, right? In 20 words. And here you can see the result, right? You can just regenerate it as much as you want. You can just make it 50, up to 50, regenerate, just create another one, right? It's just a simple method to create a more secure than normal password. But there are also other steps like two-factor authentication and stuff like that in order to strengthen your only password gate. Weak file permissions. Proper security dictates the principle of least privilege. In a work environment, you want any file accessible only by those who need to access it to get work done. On a personal level, if you are planning a trip with family or friends, you might want to share all the files related to the trip plan with those going on that trip. You don't want to share such files publicly. That's the principle of least privilege, or in simple terms, who can access what. Least privileged. Give the least privileges as you need. No more than that. Weak file permissions make it easy. Like just to go back a bit, give the least privileges in order to complete what it needs to be done. No more than that. Alright, weak file permissions make it easy for the adversary to attack confidentiality and integrity. They can attack confidentiality as weak permissions allow them to access files they should not be able to access. Moreover, they can attack integrity as they might modify files that they should not be able to edit. Access to malicious programs. The last example we will consider in the case of a malicious program, depending on the type of malicious program, it can attack confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Here we can see a combination of multiple threats mixed in a picture. We can see a horse, we can see bugs, a Trojan. Some types of malicious programs, such as Trojan horses, give the attacker access to your system. Consequently, the attacker would be able to read your files or even modify them. Some types of malicious programs attack availability. One such example is ransomware. Ransomware is a malicious program that encrypts the user's files. Encryption makes the files unreadable without knowing the encryption password. In other words, the files become gibberish without decryption, reversing the encryption. The attacker offers the user the ability to restore availability, that is, regain access to their original files. They would give them the encryption password if the user is willing to pay the ransom. Answer the questions below. Which of the following is a strong password in your opinion? Alright, so I love you and QWERTY UIOP. If we go here, we can see that QWERTY UIOP is the number 17 on the most common passwords, weak passwords, and number 14 is I love you. Let's see, learn more. I don't believe is here, but then we have also this, right? Now, you might think that if we see, for instance, this password, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and QWERT. And you might think that this is a bit out of the ordinary. It looks a bit out of the ordinary, but to be honest, I would go for this one. Why? Well, this one has uppercase letter, lowercase letter, and numbers. This one has only numbers and letters, and besides that, they are used in sequential order. So I would say learn more is the secure one. That's the correct answer. Cool!